Bird, 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 bird. Yeah! Ron Babe was right. Ron Babe was right.
I'm feeling spry. Hey everybody, it's Ron Bain with the Hunting Dog Podcast. It's the 21st of February. I still got just enough left in my vocal cords to get this intro out. Just got home from Pheasant Fest last night. It's like a hunting trip. I said it a week ago. You know, you pack up your gear, you got a long drive, you pick up some friends along the way, you set up camp, and you do your favorite thing for 3 days, which I did at Pheasant Fest and Quail Classic, which was talking to people that are listeners. Some of my patrons came by. I want to thank every one of you who stepped up to the bar, and I mean the bar. We actually built a portable bar with bar stools. If you missed it, you missed a lot. I want to thank everybody for stepping up and shaking hands and saying hello. And I want to thank Onyx Maps for stepping up to becoming our title sponsor. I mean, they have brought traversing the outdoor world to another level, and they're going to help Hunting Dog Podcast as they do the Upland Institute and my new venture, which just a sneak, that's just a tease. They're going to bring that to another level. And I can't thank them enough for doing that. As all my sponsors, I can't thank enough, like Pike Gear. Pike Gear, the technical clothing for the upland hunter. If you were at Pheasant Fest, they were right across the aisle from us, and it was like walking into a hunting shop. Everything you could need. Every line of clothes they had, all there with a little dressing room. You'd have seen it, you'd have put it on, and you're probably wearing it today. Boss Shot Shells, you cannot find a better shot shell. I've said it 100 times. I'll probably say it another 50 this year. The only copper-plated bismuth shell out there. I don't care what cartridge company says they've got bismuth. Boss has bismuth plus, meaning copper-plated. It does the job, just like Walton's does the job. Like, all you have to do is shoot something, okay? All you got to do is get it in your freezer. If you want to make sausage, if you want to make bologna, if you want to spice up your family dinners, even if you don't have enough wild, like me, I never have enough wild game for the year. I shoot birds. Walton's has got everything you could possibly need. Just go to Walton's, get their catalog, and it's like Christmas. You just open that catalog up and you just start dreaming. It's like the old Sears catalog when you were a kid. It's truth. Gunner Kennels sent us a couple of kennels. They were at Pheasant Fest. Everybody got to see them. Everybody got to put their name in the drawing. And there's some Gunner Kennels coming out to a couple of our, I don't want to say just listeners, could have been anybody that walked by at Pheasant Fest. And if they win, they will have the only 100% guaranteed for life dog kennel. That's it. Guaranteed for life. You know how solid you have to make a product to guarantee it for life? Well, that's what Gunner did. Like Garmin. Garmin made everything possible for dog training. I don't know anybody who's a professional. I don't know anybody. They may exist out there. I'm talking about my circle of friends. Nobody out there doesn't use a Garmin. And the 550 Plus is my personal favorite. They gave us a whole bunch of hats to give away, and we had a bunch of hats there to give away. And everyone that came up and said, here, after you play cornhole, you can have a hat if you get one in, or if you get two in the bucket. And the Garmin hats went first. Because you know why? They want a hat that matches what they use to train their dog with and track their dog with. And if you're looking for Garmin and you couldn't have got there and you didn't QR code it to get into running for an Alpha 10 and a collar, then you can go to W Hunting Supply today. That company will walk you through the process. They'll help you decide what unit you need, and you will not get service like that from anybody else. Absolutely. My deck drawer system came in so. You know what? I use one of my deck. The beauty about deck drawers, besides the fact that you can put 2,000 pounds on top of them and you've got all your storage in the drawers, they've got these totes. I guess back in the day I call them a toolbox. They're very oddly shaped, but they're shaped to completely nest in your deck drawer. So I have one of those toolboxes, and it's made just for going to Pheasant Fest. It's got microphones, zip ties, duct tape, extra wire cutters, everything you need to set up a trade show, that fits in my deck drawer system. That little box is going to come out, go on the shelf, and next year, right back in, close the door, off to Pheasant Fest we go. That's right. Puna Pro Plan was there at Pheasant Fest. They're everywhere. They're always there supporting you and your dog with nutrition that you cannot find anywhere else because no other company has the scientific staff of doctors and research scientists and professional people in the world of dogs. We all know it's number one, and I'm so glad to have them on because they're number one, and the show is number one, and my sponsors are all number one. They are. Canine Athlete and Wilderness Athlete, they showed up, and they were right next to our booth bar at Pheasant Fest, and they were giving away samples, and I'm telling you what, that line never slowed down. I think they gave away, 15,000 samples of their products. Well, they didn't give away, they had all their dog products there, but I'm telling you what, their Wilderness Athlete products, that Hydrate and Recover and Focus stuff, I think they just got a whole new level of customers after they brought Pheasant Fest, and I am proud to have them as my sponsor, as I am my own Upland Institute, which we had there at Pheasant Fest on a big screen. We had my buddy Trent. He was there with his poodle pointer, and he was just like a salesman standing there answering questions. But if you've got any questions, or if you missed going to Pheasant Fest, please write me. I've got something for you. As long as you are connected to Pheasant Fest, don't be afraid to write me, okay? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying. I want you to get your dog trained. I want you to experience what it's like to have a really well-trained dog, and the only way you're going to do that, well, it's not the only way you're going to do it. You could go to a pro trainer and spend $1 gazillion and then try to transfer his knowledge to you, or you could get the Upland Institute and get your new dog or your old dog ready for next season. The Hunting Dog Podcast store, we had a QR code there too as well. And if you want hats, koozies, onesies, if you've got a new grandbaby like I do, or you've got a new child of your own, or your brother or your sister or your aunt has a new kid, get them the I'm Feeling Spry onesie. You can do all that at the HDP store. I mean, it's unbelievable. So, here we go. This episode, Ryan Callahan and Mike Ammand. Ryan I've known for years, spent some time up in Alaska with Ryan. He is the conservation director, so to speak, of the Meat Eater crew. And Mike Ammand is the chief cook and bottle washer of the Wisconsin Sharptail Society. And I heard a little bit about them once before, but I am just intrigued, and I went over and talked to Mike, and he came over early Sunday morning with Brian, and we got a little. This is something that I didn't realize could be done, and I want it to be successful. I want you to listen to this. This is not a silly, well, there's a couple jokes in here, a couple bad jokes, a couple dad jokes, but we really dig into the fact that sharp-tailed grouse can and do survive in areas and prosper in areas when they have habitat. And it doesn't have to be the habitat you hunt them out in North Dakota with, or in South Dakota, or Nebraska. This is Wisconsin, and they are doing great things for habitat. It's a great story. I'm going to be actually going out there. I'm going to get to set out on a lek with a video camera and a little pop-up tent this coming spring, and I'm going to get to watch the Sharptails dance, and I can't wait to do it. I love you guys, I love you girls, and I love everybody who stopped by and shook hands and had a conversation, from showing us your dogs to telling us some stories. It was just fun. It was just great, and I can't thank you enough. Hey, everybody, it's Ron Bain with the Hunting Dog Podcast. We are in, as Ryan said, foggy Minneapolis, Minnesota. No fires out in the morning, at least. We didn't see any issues. You know, I was kind of worried if there's going to be ashes in the street left from last year. I wasn't quite sure. But the real reason we're here, for one, is Pheasant Fest, to celebrate and hang out with everybody we've met over the years in the uplands and the outlands and the woodlands and the mountains. I'm here with Mike Ammand from the Wisconsin Sharptail Grouse Society, and a acquaintance, almost friend of mine. We're friends. We're more of acquaintances, but Ryan.
Where do you draw the line, Ron?
we haven't really gotten drunk together.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there you go.
You know, that bond where you're both like trying to solve the problems of the world.
Yep.
And-
Yeah, and then you have to realize that, we've gone too far here to,
Right.
to be...
To be not just friends. Anyway, I've known Ryan for a long time. His nickname is Ryan Callahan, if you recognize that.
Yep.
A consummate, lifelong Montana. I would call you a lifelong Sharptail bird hunter, right?
Yeah.
For the most part.
For sure.
And me being a Michigan resident and a lifelong Dakota fan of going out to Dakotas chasing of all birds, I saw a little post on Instagram about the Wisconsin Sharptail Grouse Society. I reached out to them. They found they were going to have a booth here on the Grouse Trail, and they put me in touch with Mike. So I'm going to start with a question to Ryan. Did you ever even think Sharptail were east of the Mississippi, or other than in a historical document?
No, not at all. And I got to kind of define lifelong Montana grouse hunter, right?
Yeah.
When you grow up where there are sharptails, they're like targets of opportunity. You don't specifically focus on them.
Yeah.
And so it's only been until recently, really, this dog in particular that loves upland.
As much as waterfowling.
Right.
Right.
That I've gone out and, my season will start and I'd pretty much target Hungarian partridge.
Yeah.
And then move on and go, okay, now I need to specifically find sharptails.
Right.
And yeah, I just thought about that right here on this podcast, Ron. That's probably the first.
So you're saying you did a little road hunting back in the day when you were a kid? I mean, that's that's what you do out there. My Sharptail experience comes from South Dakota years ago in the 90s, and then chasing them here and there. And we have an area in the UP of Michigan that have a population of Sharptails, very limited, very private. So I mean, I think I heard about you guys, Mike, like a year or so ago on another podcast. Were you on Nick's podcast?
Yeah, I was on Nick's podcast, sure.
And I kind of heard it, and it just, kind of went in one ear and out the other. So give us the 50,000 view of what's going on here.
Sure, yeah. I think you wouldn't believe how many times I heard yesterday. People came up to the booth. You got Sharptails in Wisconsin, and even growing up in the state of Wisconsin, I never heard. What are Sharptails? I grew up in the southern part of the state, so I think it's exciting. There's a landscape that people are just aren't familiar with. Is very unique. So Sharptails are in Wisconsin. Historically, they cover the entire state. Pre-settlement, a lot of fire, and so the habitat was high quality, and then. I think fire suppression and loss of habitat. So they're still in Wisconsin, and they're mostly on public land. There currently is not a season on them, but we're fighting for population viability and just the opportunity for people to see a bird that they just don't associate. Like you said, in the forested environment. Which
it's got its own. It's so distinctive.
Oh yeah, people. I mean, I go to North Dakota, and I think I fell in love with Sharptails by hunting them, even though they were where I work. I'm a Bayfield County forester, and we have Sharptail habitat on our forest.
Right.
We have Barron's habitat, and
so that's my question though. Is the Sharptail habitat the same, even though it's Wisconsin?
It is not. It's brushier. It's quite a bit brushier. It's pine barrens. So they're living in an environment that was fire prone. So it's this repeated fire. So it's like it wants to go trees. It's usually on these sandy soils. So it looks nothing like the West. It's not.
So the
prairie.
trees that are there are real big, probably.
There were scattered really large trees, and just the small stuff would just burn over. So historically, the area was, let's say, millions of acres. And a fire interval of every 15 years, so it's just a lot of collective, natural fire, indigenous, for blueberries and
You
whatnot.
mean some indigenous people's campfire got out of control?
Could have been.
Exactly.
Could have been.
Yeah.
Because that happened to me once.
Yeah. So yeah,
it used to happen all the time. All the time. The fire conversation, boy, you can't get away from like puns or double entendres, right? Fire situations conversations really gotten out of control.
Right.
Because fire is just so bad for so many people.
Right.
And
but it's been historically so great for the planet.
Oh my God, it's so prevalent.
Yeah.
It's like we came along with our big brains and notions and said we invented a computer, so we know everything.
Right. And we overlaid it with a map from Google and a satellite.
And made it go in the wrong direction there for
a long time. So you mentioned the Barrens.
Yep.
And my recollection of Barrens is the Pine Barrens episodes from The Sopranos.
Okay.
And It's kind of like a monoculture, right? There's not a lot of variation in the barrens. What's that like?
No, I would say there's quite a bit of variation, but most of it's like less than 10 feet.
Damn
so there's
Sopranos.
Yeah, well, it's brushy, it's open, it's scattered trees. So it's like just shrubby trees and grass. So it's just and frankly, it's not what people are used to seeing. It's just sort of like, what's this wasteland? It's just brush, But historically, that's how these
almost
landscapes
ugly
look.
to a point.
Yeah, and
from what we're used
right,
to
it's
looking
not
at.
a clean field. It's not like a prairie, off into the distance. It has its own unique appeal. And I think when people drive across wooded regions, they get to the barrens, they're like, what the heck is this? What's out here? Is this normal?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because that was totally normal pre-settlement, and now everything else is growing up into trees. So I think when people see it, it catches their eye. Like, what's that brushy landscape?
Right.
That looks like a wasteland.
Right.
Because
Let's build something on it.
Because I'm a county forester. My job is to grow trees, straight rows, high production.
Yeah.
And then you look at that and you're like, well, that's not producing much of anything, except for it's producing a lot of habitat that's super
For all
important
the
for
different
plants
species.
and animals that historically had a lot more
like
space.
that quick growth habitat that
Gets all the sunlight.
and has a bunch of food in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of vibrancy out there, and I think it's just when you go out west, you see open landscapes. Sharptails are there. You come to Wisconsin, it's like, where are they going to hang out? And they hang out in these stunted forests and areas that need a lot
That's
of
a
work.
good. That'll stick in my head. Stunted.
Yeah.
Because that's about hit me when I hit 5'10". Bing. Stunted. I got a question for you, Mike. So, historically, I know they were all in Michigan too, and they were all the way to the East Coast.
Yep.
But was there any point in like our recorded history where you guys lost to Sharptails? Or
No.
was there always something hanging on?
We always, I would say, yes, we have not lost them. We've
Okay.
always had them hanging on, and the maps are kind of sad in terms of the 1970s,
accuracy.
1980s.
Sure.
But this last stronghold is in the northwest Wisconsin where I work.
Yeah.
And I feel like, and that's why there's some, it's sad to lose a lot of these species, but I think there's reason for optimism in Wisconsin, where we have a lot of these properties are in public hands, and our job as advocates is to bring value to these landscapes that people aren't familiar with,
Right.
and protect them. So I'd say, at least in our situation, we have a lot of working forest lands, a lot of public ownership, and a lot of commitment to hold on to this barren species. So I think we're going to keep them. I mean, I think
Good.
that's the whole point, a viable population.
Did somebody point these birds out to you, or did you discover them on your own?
I kicked them up while at work.
That's awesome.
And I was just,
That would be awesome.
I was
Yeah.
walking and I'm like, geez, that's not a rough grouse, because we have a ton of rough grouse.
Sure,
And so they're all over, and they kind of overlap in the habitats.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we can just reiterate it again, right? Wisconsin is rough grouse.
Yes, we are the rough
that's
grouse
not
capital. I
Sharptail
mean, we
grouse.
have Park Falls, rough grouse capital of
If
the
you go
world.
to Park Falls, it tells you.
Yes, you are
in the
with rough grouse country.
You're also in the highly populated density of hunters.
Yeah, absolutely.
in Wisconsin, too.
Just to be clear, we have no birds where I work, so you just stay out of
Right.
Bayfield
In fact, the
County.
rough grouse are almost gone because of the
the
Sharptails.
barrens. Yes, you just pack up and go somewhere else.
Is it, though, a huntable population? Is it in the regulations?
Good question. We haven't had a huntable we have not had a permit system since 2018. So
Got it.
we're in the process of rewriting the Wisconsin Sharptail Grouse Management Plan, and I'm sitting on the committee to help write that.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things we're trying to identify is what is a huntable, viable population.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah,
a
that's-
research need, because what happens is these birds, we may have let's say 600 birds. Oh, that sounds like a lot, but we might have properties where there's only like 6 on them,
Yeah.
or
Right.
5. And so if you shoot that 2 or that 1, they're so
You're really-
isolated. And
you're
so
really
this
knocking it down.
Yeah, so we have birds, and I don't know when we'll have a season again, but I think, people are running their dogs on them. You
Yeah.
can, which is,
Oh, I mean,
great
that's
experience.
good enough for me.
I
don't
know.
care if I shoot one,
Yes.
if my dog can get into them.
You know what they did in Idaho for sage grouse, right, is a permit system. So it's a tag system, like a big
That was
game
recently,
tag.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I really like because it, puts focus on the bird, but
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily pressure.
Yep.
Because you can go out and get your one
bird.
bird or 2 birds for the season.
Right.
You're still spending the conservation dollars and the hunter dollars in those communities
and all
to go
the
chase
dollars
those
that
birds.
go with that. Yeah.
And it kind of, I think it's a sweet idea because again, it puts good focus on the species, but it doesn't necessarily put the pressure on the species.
And I don't think anybody would say, "Oh, yay, we got a hunting season." But
Yep.
if it happens and it's a permit, like I said, I would go there just to, if you could run them in the spring or the fall, or what would you run them, spring or
In the fall, after July 15th, after
Okay,
the quiet
after
season's
nesting.
over.
Yeah.
So that's what we struggle with. If people can shoot 5 or 6 birds, what does that bring to the species as a whole?
Right.
Right.
So I think I think we're at the, that's what we're going to try and sort out when we
Right.
can have a limited population. But I think, again, hunters are engaged because they can run their dogs there and just, hey, we have these birds in Wisconsin, that's
Right.
worth a lot. And if you guys, are paying attention, become members, talk to the DNR and support the efforts, maybe we can have a huntable population. And that's the goal for all of us is, we as conservationists, hunters, we want to have a huntable population, but if we're not quite there, well, hey, how
I'd
do
be
we
happy
help?
with the watchable population.
Well, I was sitting on a little hill in Alberta, southern Alberta, hunting huge mule deer a long time ago, and there were so many sharptails. And this was in early October, I think, and there's this big ball of Sharpies that would come up and walk up the same hill that I was on.
Really, just watching them.
Yeah, and I mean, there were probably like 50, 60 birds in this group, and they would
Wow.
fan up and dance. And I mean, it was the best entertainment
Right.
anybody could ever ask for.
Have
It
you
was
watched them
amazing.
dance?
No, but
They do the full tail feather, like,
right. But I thought that was
turkey
only in the
strut.
spring.
Yeah. Well, they'll come in the fall. You
It
were
was in the fall,
Yeah,
yeah.
so the males will come in. It's just like rough grouse. I think they're defending their
Same thing.
territory
They're
in the
just
fall.
doing their thing.
Yep. Hey, we're
and
just
that's
Yep.
the impression that I got for
Yep.
sure. This was more of a
the juveniles sort of
dudes.
restaking.
Trying to learn how to dance.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that.
So
yeah.
they could fight their uncles and grandfathers.
Exactly,
Yeah,
yes.
the Lex.
There was a lot of
But
posturing.
You're
from
right,
each
Ryan.
other.
I mean,
Yeah.
to watch these birds dance and come in and it's one thing to hunt them and the birds go up, but
Right.
watch them do their lecking dance.
I have yet. Let's speak on a lek a little bit.
Yep.
I know what it is. I think you know what a lek is, but because my bottom line question is here: do you guys
More
have
than
any-
just an awesome Scrabble word.
right?
L-E-K.
Right, because you can use that sometimes. Describe what a lek is, so
Yep.
for the people who don't know.
Yeah.
I got a question on it.
Yeah. Unlike rough grouse, which sort of carve out a space and the male
Certain
defends
logs,
the territory.
yeah,
Yes,
yep.
like 10 acres, and the
Yeah.
females come to them. Lecking species, the males come to a very unique spot, and it's crazy. You can't tell why they're there versus over there, but something in the environment is driving them to come to a space, and they'll stake out a space, and it might be a meter across. That's where one male's going to dance. So
Right.
they come to a specific area, and as land managers, we're trying to emulate what it is a lek is, to build more leks, to
Right.
create, like, why isn't that a space over there? And we have yet to think like a sharptail to be like, oh, this is crazy. This would be a lek spot.
Right.
And it's something in the environment they see, and I don't know if it's just the way the ground sounds when they're jumping around on it, or just their viewing. But yeah, the males come in the spring and they dance, and then they try to attract the females
Right.
to come in, and so they're violent. These little birds are just sort of picking feathers and fighting, but it's just like they come from all over the landscape. They'll come in at pre-dawn.
I've got to
walk
see
in.
that. Do you have any lek viewing sites?
Yes, we do. Yeah,
I'm
there's-
going.
Yeah,
I'm
there's
going
a
in
couple
the spring.
properties,
I've gotta
and it
see
is.
it.
And some of our leks, aren't like out west where I've been hunting. The spring lek will have 150 males, but
Sure.
I mean, I've been on a lek where I've watched one lone male. That poor guy was just a female around. I felt, and this.
He's like, is the bar closed?
Oh my
Right.
God,
Dude, I
he's
can
just
hear-
drumming and doing his thing. Anyways, but some of our leks have, some of them 30, 40 birds.
Oh,
at the
that'd be
most,
so
but
cool to
15,
see.
20 would be a good number. But yeah, they're just very unique. And so, the whole landscape looks empty, but to them, they see that. I mean, it's just really neat what they see in the environment. Like,
Yeah.
this is where
You
we're going to
don't
set
probably
up.
have to deal with like bottomless eastern Montana mud if it rains.
No,
too.
yeah, it's dry sand. You can get to all of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
And when you say dry sand, because Michigan, where I live on the west coast of Michigan, you can't put a spade in the forest without hitting sand.
Yeah.
So is that
Very much
kind of
like
like
that.
that? If you kept digging, is it just sand?
Sand.
And sand and
Yeah.
and
So
sand?
during the glacier lake, I live up by Lake Superior, and it was glacial Lake Duluth. And after the glaciers melted, it drained quickly and flushed a lot of sand to the southwest, and that's sort of what we're
Just put
couple million acres of
a
just
couple million acres of sand.
of sand, and even up closer to where I work, those ridges are 300-400 feet of sand.
Really?
Yeah.
So that would be like our ridges on on the
Yes.
west side of Lake Michigan, the dunes.
Yep.
I can't picture. I've never been through that chunk of Wisconsin. Have you been up there at all?
No, I'm just proud of you Flatlanders for calling those ridges and not mountains.
Listen, at my age, that's a damn mountain, Ryan. Trust me. And plus, going up in sand, you're you're
Yeah.
only getting a half a step.
Yeah. I've been there for
Well,
sure.
But they
ours
would
isn't
would
quite-
they get up on those high ones? Because I'm thinking of Sharpies like when we hunt them, right? We're like, oh, let's go on a south
They like a
facing.
little hill, yeah.
Yep.
So would they still stay more in the brushy and just ignore those?
It's so it doesn't it's not as rugged as that where I'm
Right.
talking about with the hills. So it's sort of like high plateaus and like subtle topography.
Okay. It's not just like bare sand.
No,
dunes.
it's not.
Okay.
It's still it's got vegetation on it. But yeah, they like to be on these. It's just like when I'm in North Dakota, you can sort of see where a lek might be. It's sort of like this amphitheater, kind of high.
Right.
Sometimes they're on a ridge, and sometimes they're sort of on a high amphitheater. So I mean, it's similar concepts, but yeah. I mean, I think that's what is really neat because a lot of the region is all forested, and there's historic leks under these trees. As we cut them and open up the landscape, those birds will be like, hey, that's been jack pine for 50 years. Now you guys cut it, and if we cut it in such a way, those birds might move right onto a historic lek. So we've mapped the historic
too cool.
leks.
That's cool.
Like from the 30s, and it'll be interesting if we open the timber up in such a way where they see that as usable habitat. We could probably say, I bet they come right here because we have a location map from 1920.
So is that the kind of question, right? It's typically a habitat type of deal when you're talking about these birds. Is it trading some conservation space or management space, a zone of tolerance with timber companies or private foresters maybe? Or what's the lobbying effort here?
Yeah, exactly. Let's cut to the chase here. It's habitat loss, so we have too many trees, and it's not open enough.
Sounds funny. Habitat loss. We have too many trees.
Yes,
right.
That very specific habitat of the Sharptails, too many trees. So, exactly. So there's these core properties that are kept open by the state and the feds, but they're isolated. So what we need to figure out is how to maintain high quality habitat on those properties, which is burning,
Active
mechanical
forestry.
treatment, and that in and of itself is a very costly. So keeping the quality high where the birds are, and then connecting birds across the landscape. So that means creating new core open areas. So we have a plan in place to kind of get these birds to leapfrog across the landscapes because they're pretty genetically
And
inbred.
they will leapfrog.
Yeah, they'll fly. I mean, they're big flyers. You see them out
Right.
west; they'll go for miles. So what our problem is?
Heartbreaking. Sometimes.
Yes.
Where you're like, oh, there they are, and
Oh,
there they go.
just sail.
And then
In fact, there's free fence lines over
and
that
then you're like,
ridge.
Nope,
Yep.
not landing.
So they're strong flyers. So that's the nice thing. We don't need to clear millions of acres.
You don't have to clear 1 million to get to the 100,000.
Exactly. That's the working formula here is strategic openings. You know,
Right.
so as a forester, the property I help manage is 176,000 acres. I don't need to clear all of it.
Right.
We have a 1,000-acre opening, which has probably 25 Sharptails, but right now they don't have anywhere to go. So we're in the process of like mapping out another 1,300 acre
Is it almost
opening.
checkerboardish?
Basically,
kinda?
that's what we're shooting for.
Yeah.
And so I think it's strategic openings. And then the next phase is called what we call rolling barrens. This is how we have working forest lands, like commercial forestry, complement those core openings. So they will utilize young forest, but the young forest has to be large enough and it has to be in a layout in such a way that they use it. So how do we have working forest lands and keep lands open? Well, if we're cutting timber, I mean, if you cut a section of land, in the right spot, those birds would be like, this is big enough for us. So then you might get 6, 7, 8 years of use. So the idea is have like a core anchor property and then have this big rolling with a huge, it's all mapped out.
If you
80
could put it
years.
in a time lapse,
Yes.
you would see the
You should.
forest grow, forest
Exactly,
shrink, and it would
right.
just be in a big circular.
Yep. So that's
motion.
the balance. We can work with, we can have working forest lands and we can
Right.
provide habitat. So it's all about habitat quality. So, it's early stage would be Sharptails, and then it'd be Connecticut warbler, or that's on the other end, but a bunch of warbler species are using
Right.
this. So I think it's a good story. Like we can have
warblers are always tied to the birds, aren't they?
Yeah.
Well, it's so fun. Like, there's nothing that we talk about in the conservation space is a sole issue.
No,
right?
it's
Like,
never one.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
and there's never one solution.
Right.
Like,
That-
if we do this one thing, everything else will.
Right.
It's
Black
like-
and white that's where the details are. And so that's why I think I'm excited. As a forester, you don't hear too many foresters say, hey, how do we have Sharptail habitat? But I
Right.
think there's workable solutions to have
Yeah.
to have it both. So I think implementation, it's funding, it's identifying where these project areas are.
And keeping forests working is a huge
Oh.
deal, right?
Yep.
Because that just kind of like the word fire, conservation means people never get to touch it.
Save it.
for so many
Yes.
people,
Save
right?
it. Don't.
And it's like no.
You
Like,
got it.
this is what we're talking about.
Right.
And we talk about conservation easements.
Right.
Right. It's like, well, yeah, the idea is to have habitat. There's going to be a management plan,
Yeah.
but within that management plan, you can run cattle, you can harvest timber,
Right.
you can burn, you can do these things.
There's a lot of extraction, so to speak, and addition. to that kind of
I think well-managed forests provide, a lot of the county I work for is relying on timber revenue. And,
Right.
we've had public land county forests generating revenue, local jobs, local revenue for 85 years. And we continue, our goal is to sustain forests. And then what are the wildlife that are using that? And we know that through good forest management. There's different age classes. I mean, we're gonna pick out in this rolling barrens good Connecticut warbler, good Kirtland warbler, Sharptail habitat, and different density of jack pine plantings favor different species. So I think that's what's exciting as a forester. I get to, we can do wildlife is a huge part of the story, and I think it's more than hey, stop cutting those trees. It's like we're going to lose all these species if we don't cut these trees strategically, and it's not cut and run.
So we got to make forestry sexy in the next.
We do,
decades, right? We got to make this be like, hey, I'm going to cut a tree in my backyard now. Like you want that? Was it the New Jersey cat lady to cut a tree down in her backyard?
Oh yeah,
Get her on board.
Exactly. Get a steel chainsaw specifically.
Yep.
And then
Wait, let me look at my list. Do I have a chainsaw sponsor?
early successional forests, right? If you're a ruffed grouse person,
Gotta love it.
go find a bunch of old growth trees. Like you're not gonna
You're not
be
going there for
swimming
that.
in rough grouse,
No,
right?
no.
It's like you want, and you're not gonna find a bunch of moose.
Yeah.
And you're not gonna find a bunch of deer.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, our breeding bird surveys, I mean, it shows like that younger age class is where the diversity is. So having a well-managed forest with all the age classes, and again, even at the early end with Sharptails is really cool.
And even if it didn't quadruple the population, if you just had it where you knew they were going to be there
Viable,
in perpetuity,
long-term,
then you did the right
that's
thing.
the goal.
You
Yeah,
did the right thing.
Yeah, and we're close. I think we're moving in the right direction. I'm excited. I mean, I don't think you can, because I can look at, hey, if we cleared 1,300 acres and we had a neat prescribed burn this fall where the DNR did a burn, we did a burn. Their property isn't quite big enough to hold Sharptails, but if our Sharptails would see that burn and they would fly over to that habitat.
Right.
And so you could be like, that property, if it was doubled or tripled in size, birds would make a living there and they would survive. So I think there's some small success stories that are hard to come by. And like when you talk about declining species, habitat loss, I think we're in a position where we can
moving the
at least
needle a little
we can
bit.
stabilize things. And we got this cool project where we GPS collar these Sharptails because we don't really know a lot about forested Sharptails and where they go in these barrens habitats. So our department helped fund this research project. So we have a couple of Sharptails carrying these little GPS backpack units, and it's really neat. We had a prescribed burn, and you got to see the burn. The bird was hanging out in that burn, and then I could see where he flew out, and then he flew right back in.
Really?
But it's just how is he using the habitat,
Wow.
and how can we use what we learned to increase management effectiveness? Which is really awesome. It's applied research. Like the bird told us
never knew
this.
they did that.
Let's tweak this.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So you said there's low genetic diversity in this population, but how much genetic diversity is there in a healthy population too? Like I always see these birds kind of come up in their own age classes and move around together,
Right.
which is just purely observational.
Right. And then you see the winter flocks are bigger. And then
Yeah, so maybe that's where the mixing happens.
Maybe.
I think so. And to be honest, I'm not a geneticist, but we did have some really cool genetic work where they translocated some Sharptails from Minnesota to get genetic diversity. So
There's
there was
Sharptails in Minnesota too.
Yeah, the west side.
yeah, there's quite.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
He does have to get out of those mountains a little bit. Hey, you would love walking on flat land, Ryan. You'd last all day.
Kill the dog.
It might.
Yeah.
So I'm not an expert in it, but they did some interesting work, and when they brought the Sharptails over, they were making sure that they were bringing the right genetic diversity for thriftiness. I mean, there's just a lot of variability, and so when you have 5 birds just making a living totally inbred, I think it's just one more slight against how resilient are they to changes and thriftiness through just not mixing with another population. So in terms of where we're at and where we need to go, I'm not exactly sure. I just hear isolated populations are always a struggle. So and they're not flocking up to hang out because they're too far apart.
It would be so much fun to have like that slow-mo video, just like NWTF has shown forever, National Wild Turkey
haven't seen
Federation,
that one.
where they're releasing turkeys in new spots.
Yeah.
They have that, very reduced size bird comparatively flying out of cages.
Yeah.
Mixing populations. That'd be awesome. It'd be super fun.
I got a food question, if possible, because for the Sharpie, I know there's a lot of Sharpie nuts, that I think it's getting a little much almost. Like, I love Sharpies and Huns. Last year you said you love pheasants. Everyone, I think they like the easy walk-ins.
Yeah, oh
myself.
boy, you and me both
But
out there.
When I go out west, it's like in early season for September, there's grasshoppers everywhere.
Yep.
And then we got, rose hips.
Yep.
And we got silverberries and buffalo winter berries, right?
Yep.
What's do they have the hoppers and the bugs in
Yes.
that? Is there,
Yep.
what kind of fruit, so to speak, are they eating?
Yeah,
I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, we have rose. Well, good question. We have rose hips as well. Blueberries, a big food
I didn't
source.
think of blueberries,
Yeah,
yeah.
and we have hoppers, and
Which
so I
ones?
think that's where prescribed burning and just sort of the nature of I think that flush after a burn can really bring in a lot of hopper production. And I think there's forb seeds. I mean,
Sure,
a lot of
stuff
seeds
that
and buds in
they just
wintertime.
pick up.
In wintertime, they're budding a lot in the adjacent trees and white
So they'll
birch and
bud
stuff.
like a,
yeah, they'll snow
rough
roost,
grouse.
and they'll bud
And
in
they'll
the winter.
snow roost?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I got to learn more. Mike, I got to get up there because I kept telling myself I'm going to one of these Lex one spring.
Oh, we'd love to have
But
you.
I figured I'd have to go all the way again, 13, 18-hour
Yeah.
drive.
Yeah, no.
Oh, that's going to be
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, you're welcome anytime. There's a couple properties, and actually, there's a property called Crex Meadows that there's a big 30,000 acre property DNR has, and they struggled with birds and funding and staffing, and they pulled that property back. And just a few years ago, there was maybe 15 birds there. A small number. Now I
right.
think they had 70 dancing males. So I mean, you
Wow.
can see you get good habitat. Those birds will respond.
Wow. Yeah, I cannot picture. I just can't. I can't picture it. In fact, I looked up on my phone this morning, and I'm like, Pine Barrens. Good morning. Oh, go ahead.
Ice people today?
Yeah, they need ice over there.
Perfect.
Well, we're going to start getting a little. We only got. I'd like to get another hour. No, but I mean, I love the conversation. It's going to. Excuse us, people. I'm not going to edit this. I never do because I don't have an editor. Unless I send it to Phil.
Yeah, Phil.
Could send it to Phil.
Yeah, Moonlight Phil. He'd do something.
I don't
Yeah.
want to make him lose his job. But yeah, I was trying to picture the food, but it's really the same thing.
Yeah,
It's
there's
just-
a lot of
I
similarities.
can't
We don't have the
picture.
silverberry,
When you
but
said blueberry, I'm like, oh yeah, I got blueberries in the woods, in that sandy soil where I live in Michigan.
yeah.
I could just see it's almost like a mountain or a flat. You could almost just pick your own
Blueberries are
there.
incredible. I mean, people
Right.
come out of the woodwork. I think there's more value in barrens in Wisconsin when the blueberry season's
Really?
because people. I mean, it's everywhere, and
Interesting.
it's interesting how people interact with the barrens. You go by most of the year and nobody's there, and you're like,
Yeah.
anybody come to these? And
Right.
we don't have. I'd like to do more for signage for education, just because a lot of this is, is this growing trees? Is it growing a crop? Is it growing a parking lot? Is it growing a house?
Right.
This is growing brush, but that's okay. This is why. This is what it looks
Right.
like. And so even people that live there aren't, what's that for? But I think certain times of the year, the roadsides are just covered with people picking blueberries, which is
Really?
great. Use the landscape, that's.
I will be there this year. I
Yeah.
will be there this year.
Yeah.
I
Well,
might-
that's the conversation too. Is people are like, well, what was this like before? Like historically, it was a hell of a lot more brush.
Yep.
And yes, there were people here too.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
It was because well, what was it like before?
Did
It's
anybody
like,
try to
drives me
farm this
crazy.
area back in the day too?
Oh, yeah.
Because you mentioned
that's how a lot
most
of those.
it's public land now.
Yes, it will all went tax. It will cut over. And then, of course, come farm it,
Come farm it.
and we'll entice you with these,
The poor Finlanders came over
Yes.
on the
Oh,
boat.
and
They could
oh
make-
my gosh.
They could make a
and
living in sand.
This sand is those poor folks. So yeah, that's how a lot of it came back to public ownership. That's a lot of the story.
Wow.
Is the lands that nobody wanted. I mean, our county forest system. So the county forest system in Wisconsin, which is unique. I don't know if you've heard of the county forest, but it's the largest public landowner in the state of Wisconsin at 2.5 million acres.
Wow.
And there's 30 or so counties that have county forests, but it's all from tax delinquency, from timber companies cutting and leaving, and it goes on the tax roll. And could you imagine Great Depression? Let's farm it. That failed.
Right.
Went back, and the county rolls, and they're like, what are we going to do with all these acres? And so there was a county forest law, state forest program, and they started getting some programs together to organize, what are we going to do with all these tax delinquent lands? And so that's why, it was built on generating, let's rehabilitate these lands, the CCCs. I mean, a
Right.
lot of those pine stands are planted during the CCC, and we're reaping the benefits of those
Yeah.
those progressive reforestation efforts are, helping us and, local jobs, local revenue. And so, yeah, that's the backstory of the county forest. So it was all, tax delinquent, farming, and now public land.
That's crazy. I wouldn't, but I could picture a county slowly shrinking and going bankrupt, and at some point there's only two
Yeah,
farmers left.
yeah.
They're like, we're going back to Milwaukee to work in the foundry.
Yeah.
And then the county gets all that contiguous state
Yep.
property.
And of course, public land and the value of it now that it's been well managed for a long time, there's a lot of pressure for people to move up and live here. These lands are, cost of the land is high, and now these lands that we've managed well, it's a real asset to the community.
Yeah.
And so there's a big mix of state land, Forest Service land, and county land, kind of in this whole complex.
You
where
guys
it's
communicate well?
all the time. Yeah, I'm talking with the Forest Service. They're doing great work. They got a huge Muckwa Barrens property, really, really well managed, and DNR, and now county. So yeah, that's a big part is communication across part. What are you guys working on? What are you trying this year?
Yeah, I know Michigan. We, as Michigan residents, we kind of whine about our state versus our federal properties. They don't seem to communicate as well.
Yep.
But
Yeah,
I've always
that's a
heard that
challenge.
Wisconsin state forests are really well managed.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I work with the DNR all the time on our property. They get certain hours to work on county forests. So I'm an advocate. I'm always, hey,
Yeah, yeah.
Fez, what are you doing? Because we can't be in a silo trying to do something that's not working. Or I think communication is important, especially on species that need all the help they can get. So
Well, that's like what's really encouraging out of BLM, Forest Service right now, and starting in the Trump era was this, more of a move towards landscape management versus property management, right? Because just like you're saying, if you have a program going on 40 acres, that can be easily ruined or enhanced by what's going on the 160 acres that's only divided by a 3-strand barbed wire fence, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And so being able to work interagency
Yep.
and
Landscape level is
yeah.
Does it
important.
work well in Montana?
we're getting there. Yeah.
I mean, has it been one of them we complain about it more than it works, or?
Well, as you know, bitching and moaning's like the great American pastime, right?
Especially
Oh boy.
with hunters, even.
My
Yeah.
God, yeah. It's like, oh, you didn't like that?
Right.
Like, there were 9 public meetings last year. They talked about it all the time.
Did you go to one?
Yeah, did you go to one?
No.
Did you complain then?
No.
No? But you're complaining
But I
now?
don't like it.
I know. Because it's changed.
Did you have any fencing issues, or has this place
Nope.
been? So this area's just been primed for this.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Literally just
yeah.
been-
Yep.
You didn't have to have 18 miles of fence dragged out or anything like that.
No, I think that all happened a long time ago, and it's been working forest lands for, like I said, 80 plus years, and it's evolved even on our forests in terms of, I think, value and recognizing the value of these barrens landscapes, even as foresters, and having those birds and having that. I think it's easy to lose sight. Like, hey, we're got to produce these acres. Every acre needs to produce a tree. That's my job. That's my
Yeah.
department.
Yeah.
So I think even within the natural resource profession, just okay, let's take a step back. This is a landscape opportunity. I mean, the Barren system is like a globally imperiled landscape, and it's only here. So I can plant trees anywhere, but
In New Jersey.
Yeah, right.
From
right.
Sopranos.
Yeah,
I don't want to.
yeah, right.
I don't want to.
There's the last bastion there. You can take
Yeah.
a couple of Sharptails home with you.
You know,
Plant 'em in New Jersey?
this is a Wade's rabbit hole track. One of the first attempts to bring Hungarian partridge in this country was in New Jersey.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
wild.
Yeah, I mean, like 1830
Way back,
or
yeah.
40
But the
or
Italians ate them all.
something. I don't know. Thank you for that, though.
Uh-huh, yeah.
I was thinking it was the English that brought them over so they could shoot something easy to hit.
I have taken a lot of folks in the last 3 years out to hunt Hungarian partridge, and every first flush
Yeah.
is such a adrenaline-filled event that nobody can hit anything.
Right.
Right. Like they're
It's
so
just-
scared
It's
by
a given. They're not.
the massive wings going off. And,
Right.
And it's great.
Their
It's
eyes
awesome.
go. Pop, 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 pop.
It's
You can't-
amazing.
Yeah.
I love them. I want to define your Sharptail hunter, because I've talked to quite a few here, and it is interesting how many people are like, "Oh yeah, Sharptails."
Well, I think it's somebody who finds. I think there's some romance in it, because pheasants, you could go to a preserve, you can go wild. There's no sharp, but you can get into enough sharptails in good sharptail country, and quite honestly, they're easy to hit. I mean, if they're in range and you can't knock one down, I think people find success in it especially if they go early. That their dogs do good in them. I mean, people historically trained their bird dog. All the field trial people train on Sharptail grouse since the turn of the last century. So, I think people just, when it works out well for them and their dog, I think they just fall in love with it, and they feel like they're doing a species that's only like you thought.
Like woodcock hunters too.
There you go.
Right.
Very niche, and then of course there's always the chance of getting some huns with them if things are going right. But yeah, I don't know exactly how to describe them. but I think like 30 years ago when I started going to South Dakota, I shot a sharptail that was walking across the road, went into a ditch, acted just like a hen pheasant, but I knew it was a sharptail. I swing out of it. Luckily, it's legal in South Dakota.
Yes.
Grab my little 20 gauge coach gun, load it up, walk in a ditch, and I shoot this sharptail that came out, lone sharptail in a midst of cornfields, right? And it's like I didn't see him enough, so I wanted to chase him more.
Yeah.
And then I couldn't find him. Now I found him.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to describe the sharptail hunter other than I think they find. I know one common thing we had, like 4 people I talked to last year, we were sending textures because we all hit that early season. It's getting real popular to go early season when it's hot. You really can't get a lot of hunting in, but the birds are dumb. And Nick Larson from Birdshot Podcast and another friend of mine, we're taking pictures of the different plants and shrubs and forbs, and we're hitting the Google, what is this?
Oh, yes.
And we're
Yep.
sending. So I think maybe they're just better advocates of habitat. I don't know. Could be.
Yeah. But predominantly all pointer people.
Predominantly all pointer people.
That's what I've certainly run into here. Yeah.
But I've got a little cocker, and I did not take her I took her with me on the trip. I didn't take her sharptail hunt. I was just hoping to find some road birds with no gun
Yep.
to get her into some flushing situation. But definitely pointer people,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, because I keep telling, I'm like, well, sharptail hunting's super fun.
Right.
But if I'm being honest, I've had very few days where it's the
count on
combination of difficult with success.
Yeah.
I typically, like, if you laid out all my sharptail hunting days,
Right.
there's just as many days where it was too easy
Okay.
as there are
Just
too
impossible.
hard, impossible.
Right.
Yes.
You keep seeing them 300 yards away
Yep.
because they've been pressured.
Yeah, and it's like
It's an odd
rolling
bird.
thunder out ahead of you. Like
Yeah.
you're like, oh yeah, there's lots of birds here,
Right.
and
when you're
then
getting up on them.
I also don't like those situations too where you noticeably are only killing the youngest birds,
I know.
right? There's like a couple holdovers that are still there,
Yep.
and you're like, this is a runt compared to everything else
Yep.
that just took off here.
And he's
Like
dumb.
there's a pattern.
Right, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I felt kind of creepy this year. The Huns must have had a late hatch or a rehat, re-nest, not a late hatch. But I shot this Hun and I almost thought it was like a meadowlark or something. I mean, it was almost an unidentifiable bird, except for the fact that it went up in a covey.
Yeah.
And I dropped one, and I was so proud. Got a Hun. I'm like, poor little feller. But we're digressing too. Sharptail hunting. I don't know how to. Do you do it? Do you do it enough?
Yeah, that's where I fell in love with
What
it.
do you
North
hunt with?
Dakota.
What kind of dog?
I have a Weimaraner.
Okay.
I had Weimaraners, and now I have English setters. And I fell in love with sharptail hunting going to North Dakota. I think that helped me appreciate them back. But yeah, I've hunted eastern Montana and North Dakota for the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, as a rough grouse hunter, battling the brush,
Yeah.
and the challenging shooting,
Yeah.
especially early season. I go out there and it is just, I love it. Ankle
It's
high.
almost easy,
The
really.
dog, it is the dog, and I got some tinnitus, hearing loss issues, and
So you
so
don't
I
have
can
to-
I can visually see a lot
Right.
more. And you see the dog work, and it's just those rolling prairies are just enticing. And then I come back to the Midwest and be like, what am I doing in this woods? It's
Yeah.
so hard to hunt. So I think it's romantic. It's easier.
Yeah.
You see the dog work, which you don't see in rough grouse woods. So
No, you don't. Rare, unless your dog's holding point finally.
Exactly,
And actually pinned a rough grouse down, which, rough grouse are dumb too early. The young ones.
yeah, you get into
But,
it. Coveys. Yeah.
The smell of the prairie in the morning is something that is lodged deep down in my soul.
Really?
Like, oh yeah.
I've heard people say that, but I don't have the olfactory for this.
It's
What
just
is it?
it's just
What
like
is it?
if you get like light rain out there and like some mixed sage grouse, sagebrush, and mixed prairie ecosystem.
Yeah.
Like that's just like eastern Montana. Yeah.
There's a smell.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you walked off a plane in another country and they bottle that, you'd go.
Oh, home.
So that
sure.
must be like the
Yeah.
woods for grouse
Oh,
hunting
yeah.
on a wet
Oh,
October
yes,
day.
yeah.
That's so strong.
That aspen and
because
the
you're
rotting
walking through
leaves.
aspen.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah,
just
the
talking about-
acid and rotting leaves you can smell.
Yeah,
Kinda,
it's very distinctive.
yeah.
Well, listen, Mike, I think this place is going to get a little crowded and a little noisy. Ryan, thanks for coming on and throwing your 2 cents in. in finding out that even
It's worth more than that, Ron. I mean,
All right.
it's
a
come
buck,
on.
a buck and a half.
Thank you.
$1.50. And Mike Ammand, I'm coming up. You let me know. We're gonna stay in touch. I want to see a lek. I don't care if
Absolutely.
it's one
Yeah.
one dancing bird or
Hey.
10 dancing birds. I got to see this
It's
because
special.
I've been wanting to, and I just, it's like, how do I justify driving all the way to where
Yeah.
I know, 19 hours away, when I could pop over the lake, take the Muskegon ferry to Milwaukee.
Absolutely.
Boom.
Right.
I'm in your backyard
Yeah, come
in
on
5
up.
hours.
Yeah.
Same bird, just funky accent.
Right. and that's what's really, because I do like the prairie so much, I can't wait to see like this transition.
Oh,
Like this other,
I hold this bird in
it'd
North
be like
Dakota.
you seeing a moose in Mississippi.
Yeah,
You'd be like,
right.
coolest moose I've ever seen. And you've seen moose,
Yeah.
right?
No,
Maybe?
that
yeah.
so yeah. I'll hold a dead bird in North Dakota, and then I'll grab a bird when we trap them in the spring for
Yeah.
GPS collars, and I'll hold this live sharptail in my hand, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, this is like the coolest thing in the world is to hold a Wisconsin sharptail.
Oh, that's cool.
And you put the little backpack on, and he clucks, he chuckles at you as you go
Chuckles as he
away.
goes
And it's
away.
just like, it's the same bird, but boy, you move it a few hundred miles to the east, and it's like,
I'm going to bring my
A unicorn.
video camera.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring this.
yeah,
And we're going to go
put
out.
you in a lek. Oh, absolutely.
So, Mike, tell everybody what they're going to do and why they're going to do it and how they do it.
Yeah, how
How
do
do we-
folks get involved with
Yeah.
keeping sharptail or hopefully growing sharptail in Wisconsin?
Yeah, I would first join the Wisconsin Sharptail Grouse Society, wisharptails.org. And again, I understand we say things all the time that we're never going to see necessarily, but once you hear about that they exist, I think even if you're not going to ever see the Northwest Sands, I think it's a Barrens landscape that's special. So if we can get support and keep building it through the society, we can be an advocate to the DNR, to the Forest Service, to these public agencies,
Yeah.
and we help fund. All our money goes back into
Right.
supporting these costly efforts. So
Yeah.
I think just awareness, education. Hey,
I'll
they're
throw
out
it on
there.
every intro.
Yeah.
I just blow hot air every time I start
Yeah.
an intro 50 times a year. If we can't get some members, I'll be shocked.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the time and
Yeah.
speaking with you guys because I think conservation.
Is there any publication once a year or any
Yep, yeah,
updated
you'll get a
website?
newsletter. Yeah, if you become a member, you'll get a newsletter. And like I said, I think we're on this cusp of growing. I mean, we have our own beer now. I just
Oh,
gave
I
these
love
guys
that.
this Sharptail Ale.
Who made that,
We got
Mike?
some merch.
District 1 Brewing.
Yeah.
And where are they out of?
They're out of Stevens Point in central Wisconsin.
Which is known for good beer back in the day, Point Beer.
Absolutely. 5% go back to the Sharptails. So I
Nice.
just think, we have a lot of you have Sharptails in Wisconsin? Yes, we do. And the goal is, in maybe a few
Let's keep
years,
'em there,
everybody
at
knows
least.
about it, and we're fighting hard for it, and we have a good, viable
Let's
population.
Hope, you know what? Let's hope that everything keeps moving forward, and we get some grumpy hunters that go, "How come I didn't get to go this year?"
Absolutely.
Then we know we won.
Yes,
Yes,
Right?
absolutely.
If it becomes a
We'll
grumpy
get some
hunter
grumpy
subject,
hunters, yeah.
right now it's just maybe.
Yeah.
But I want it to the point where people are like, "Why did you get me involved with that? I can't even get out there. It's only one day a year." I'll be happy if that argument comes.
Oh, it'd be fantastic
Yeah.
too, yeah. Also, like the good folks here at District 1 Brewing,
Yeah.
if we could tie all the beer into conservation, we'd be kicking
Oh,
ass.
could you imagine?
Yeah.
Could you imagine, like, let's just say,
It's a
my
win-win.
personal consumption. So on your trivia
I'd
game,
much rather talk about your personal consumption than mine.
Okay.
So let's do
well,
that.
I think Meat Eater Trivia had what state had the highest per capita drinking of beer?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I guessed Wisconsin, and I thought, Michigan possibly. Then I was shocked to find out, like, of course, this is population-wide, and let's just say it was Wisconsin. I think it was Minnesota or something, because they ice fish and drink more than we do. But it was something like 13.6 gallons per year.
Whoa.
And I'm like, I did some quick math.
Right.
And I wrote Steve.
Times 12.
I wrote Steve a text. I go like, you guys, you tell Spencer that question was skewed. Because if you'd have went just in Muskegon County, I'm responsible for 138 gallons a year. Not 13. Well, I mean, it was like 8 times 7
Yeah.
times 4 times 12. And it turned out like I drank, 130 gallons of beer a year. To your point, if we can get the beer people on our side,
Yeah.
a penny a can.
Conservation.
Oh.
It's just going to happen. And we
Kicking
partnered with
ass.
BHA on this too. I got to say,
Oh, did
it's been
you?
a great partnership with BHA.
I had a beer sponsor for a couple years, and then COVID hit. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of good
we gotta-
partnerships, but
We
yeah, I
got to
think-
talk to District 1.
Yeah, I love it.
I
That's
mean,
awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't really kick out, skill or chainsaws or anything. You're going to have to.
No, but
you know, they could be
I know that there's a fair amount of folks who run chainsaws that may enjoy a beer after a long, hard day,
Yeah.
throwing some dust around. So
One more thing, Upland Lowlife, Jay Dowd is here. He's got a booth here.
Oh,
he designed this.
Upland
Yeah.
Lowlife.
Oh,
that's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, he's
I
in the
love
shirt.
Jay's
So-
a Michigan resident,
Yeah.
devout.
Oh
Girl
yeah, your
Scout.
guys' hats kick ass.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he made Justin and I think I actually have the original print of this. I think
Really?
we'll save that for
Yeah.
the spring episode.
Yeah.
Mike,
Awesome.
thanks for coming. Cal,
Yeah.
thanks for sitting in.
Highly educational.
All right.
Appreciate it.
See ya.